All right. So good morning, everyone. Welcome in from across the continent for another very exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. For many of you, it's your first time ever joining us. And so if this is your first time, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And we do like 30 to 40 of these every single month, featuring the coolest scientists and explorers on planet Earth. It has been a wild ride to start the school year, and all our programs that we've done in the last week and a half, and all our programs to be done for all time, are going to be on our YouTube channel. So if you want to catch this one again, share it with your family and friends. There's lots of ways to keep the learning going after we're done. Before I dive in with today's topic, I do want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, if you want to play along with a little 4-question quiz to test your understanding and have some fun, you can pull up that game pin below to do just that. Now, I'm particularly excited. I'm a pretty excitable guy, as you can probably tell. But I'm particularly excited today because we are diving in with my favorite series of the school year so far, and probably one of my favorites by the end of it too, which is our amazing Ambassadors of Conservation series. Now, in just a couple weeks, the World Conservation Congress, all the nature nerds in the world are going to gather in Abu Dhabi to sort of chart a future for wildlife on this planet. They only do this every 4 years. And so we wanted to celebrate by bringing in some of the coolest people, the coolest ambassadors from the If Then She Can amazing campaign. These are the coolest women on planet Earth doing work of all kinds to understand the world and make it a better place. And so we've got a 10-part series that we're kicking off with you today with Dr. Kristen Lear, one of our very favorite scientists we ever bring on the broadcast. Now, she's with Bat Conservation International, which is an amazing organization, and I can't encourage you to check it out enough. But today, she's going to dive in a little bit on her career, understanding, helping us find and save bats. So if you're a little scared of bats, hopefully by the end of today's program, you feel a little bit differently. But without further ado, Dr. Lear, thank you so much for joining us for, I think, the 5th or 6th time. And welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
We're so thrilled that you keep coming back. We just love having you. Come on anytime. It's always a thrill.
Yep. Thank you. I'm excited to chat bats today.
So I know you got a big presentation. If you want to bring that up and dive in, let's get underway and have some fun.
Let me do that. Let's see. Okay.
As you're doing that, by the way, I just want to note that's the most on-point shirt of all time. So thank you. That's the world. Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about it. I have many. I had to pick one of my favorites to wear today.
You are all set. This looks great. Take us away.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I am very excited today to talk about my favorite animals, bats. So my name is Dr. Kristen Lear. I am a bat conservationist, which means I work around the world to protect and save bats. So I'm going to talk a little bit about bats kind of 101 today, some cool bat facts, get into how I became a bat scientist, and then end with some tips on how you can help bats at your own home. Okay, let's dive on in. So, bats. There are many bats around the world that are extremely diverse in how they look. I love these pictures here because these are some of my favorite bats. We have the little Honduran white bat up here that I like to think looks like little cotton balls because they're so tiny and little white fluffy cotton balls, basically. Then we have this middle bat here that looks like a really cute flying fox, and it's called a flying fox because it does look like a fox that flies. Then this one up here in the top right, we have one of the 3 vampire bat species. And I wanted to show this picture because vampire bats are not scary. This one looks kind of fun, kind of smiling a little. Then we have another fruit bat down here in the bottom left that has these big eyes to be able to find fruit and to be able to eat that fruit. Then one of my favorite bats, the middle bottom, the hammer-headed bat. And the males have these ginormous nostrils and these noses that they use to make big honking sounds to attract female bats. And then one of my favorites is this little yellow bat. It's called affectionately the Yoda bat because it kind of looks like Yoda from Star Wars. But I show all of these bats because there are there are now 1,500 species of bats in the world. Just recently we hit 1,500, and there's likely more out there that we don't know about. And 1 in 5 mammals is a bat. So bats are not rodents. Bats are not very closely related to rodents. They're their own group of mammals. And so 1 in every 5 mammals is a bat. Now, bats live basically everywhere on Earth. They live on all continents except Antarctica. So they're not down here in Antarctica, but all of these orange places are where bats are found. There's even bats in cold places like Alaska. And of course, there's bats, flying around where we live. I bet you've seen a bat flying around your neighborhood or your school in the evening before it gets too dark. Now, some cool facts. I can't hear you all, but I want you all to kind of get your numbers in your head, and you can shout them out if you want. So the world's largest bat, which is a fruit bat or one of the flying foxes, has a wingspan. So wingtip to wingtip of how long? How long do you think this?
I can actually ask them, Dr. Lear, so I can bring classes in to see what they think, if you'd like.
Yeah, we can do that. Sure.
Cool. The world's largest wingspan. If you're on YouTube and you want to put in the chat, if you're on StreamYard and you want to put in the chat or yell it out, we can. But what do we think for the longest wingspan of a bat in the world? This gives a little bit of a sense of it. But let's see. We've got Solon Spring School, our Wisconsin crew. Do you guys have a thought?
10 inches. They said 10 inches.
10 inches. Oh, yes. Bigger than that.
Maybe a little bigger.
Maybe a little bigger. We got 2 feet coming in. We got 3 feet. We got 35 centimeters. Okay. More,
nice.
Basically like 10, 12 inches. What do we got? What's our real answer?
Our real answer is 6 feet. 6 feet. So that's actually longer than I am tall. So that's a huge wingspan. These bats are really big. And how much do you think they weigh? Any idea of how much they weigh?
Ooh, what do we think? We were all a little short on the first one in terms of weight. Maybe a little lighter than we think, maybe a little bigger. We've got 100 pounds. We're going huge, giant bats, monster bats from North Carolina, 43 pounds. Keep them coming. Great 5.6s. That's awesome. 50 pounds. On YouTube, I've got 25 pounds. Okay, so the gamut from 25 to 100. I'm going to say less than that. I'm going to say 10.
Okay, drum roll. Okay, here we go. 2 pounds. That's it. They are really big wings, but they don't actually weigh that much because their body's not that big. And remember that these bats, these giant bats here, are fruit bats. They only eat fruit. So these are not like terrorizing bats that you see in the scary movies. They're just eating fruit. So good guesses, everyone. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we have the world's smallest bat, the bumblebee bat, which weighs less than something. It's a kind of a common everyday object. Any guesses on what's a small object?
I don't think the bumblebee is what we're going for here, even though it's
not the bumblebee.
Common everyday object. What do we think? Smaller than a what? We've got pencil. We've got very nice. Okay, that was my guess too. Actually, there you go. What do we got? Anything else? Credit card. We've got We've got pen. We're going with a lot of writing utensils. Let's stick with those. What's our answer?
Well, the credit card was close with the money. It's less than a penny. So these tiny little bats are about the size of your thumb tip, and they weigh less than a penny. And so we have bats from 6 feet long, wingspan, to weighing less than a penny and smaller than your thumb tip, and everything in between. So bats are really diverse and really cool. There's so many different types of bats around the world. So superpowers of bats. I like to think about bats as being superheroes because they do good things for us and for the environment. So one of my favorite of their superpowers is pollination. So you can see this picture here. This bat has its head in a tube, and you see this big, long, pink thing coming out of its mouth? That is its tongue. That tongue, some bats can have tongues 1.5 times their body length. So that would be like if you stood up and you put your arm in the air, your tongue would be as long as from your fingertips all the way to the floor. And that would be your tongue. They actually have special space in their chest where it goes, so it's not just like flapping around when they're flying. They have it in their body when they're flying around. But they use that long tongue to get deep into flowers, and then they get covered in pollen. So when we think of pollinators, so animals that spread pollen and pollinate plants and help plants reproduce, we think of often things like bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds as being pollinators. But bats are great pollinators too. Now I like to show this picture. So who is the better pollinator? If you look at these pictures, can you all guess? So see all the yellow stuff. All the yellow stuff is pollen from the flower. Which one do you think is the better pollinator. It does a better job of pollinating.
The bat's certainly the most fervent pollinator by plunging his face right in. And during our bat presentation, we are getting all bats coming in. Yes. Very nice.
Yep, thank you. Yay. So you are right. The winner is the bat, because you can see, how much pollen the hummingbird has. It has some. It gets some pollen on it. But look how much pollen the bat gets on its fur. It's a lot more. So bats tend to get more pollen and spread more pollen than other pollinators. You can see this bat is covered in head to toe in yellow pollen. And the cool thing is bats tend to carry that pollen farther than many other animals. So they can travel 20, 30 miles one way. That's way longer than you probably get to school from your home. And they're spreading all that pollen around. Whereas, insects, they just kind of stay around a much smaller area. Same thing with hummingbirds. So they are very effective pollinators, and that is one of their superpowers. So the next, if you think about, if you raise your hand if you like coconuts. I know this might be maybe not as much as a kid thing, but I like coconut in my chocolate.
Yeah, coconuts are the best. If you don't like coconuts yet, don't worry. You'll come around ultimately. It's the greatest flavor ever. Yeah.
Exactly. But what about bananas? Anyone like bananas?
Yep. Like those too.
I love bananas.
Yeah.
Well, coconuts and bananas are two of the things that are pollinated by bats. And for the adults out there, tequila and mezcal, if you like tequila and mezcal, bats are pollinating agave plants that these products are made out of. So if you're enjoying any of these things, if you're eating a banana for breakfast, say thank you, bats, for bringing me this banana, because without bats we would not have bananas or coconuts or tequila. So thank you, bats. Now, a second superpower of bats is seed dispersal. So a lot of bats around the world will eat fruit, like we talked about, that giant one, and they will suck out the juices. You can see it shoving it in its mouth, this fig here. And they shove it in, squeeze the juice out, and then they'll usually spit out the rest of the fruit, or they'll eat the pulp and then eat the rest of the fruit, and then eventually, poop things out. And what's in the rest of that fruit? What's in the pulpy thing of say an apple? What's in the middle of the apple?
What do we got? You guys have been a great YouTube and StreamYard audience so far with great answers to these. So we will say, yes, seeds, lots of seeds galore. Nice.
Seeds galore. So those seeds, after they spit them out or poop them out later, will then grow into new trees and new plants. So these bats are really helping regenerate or regrow places like tropical rainforests. And these bats are one of the best seed dispersers, or seed let's get those seeds out there. The animals that do the best at this. Now, the third superpower is insect pest control. So many bats, the majority of bats around the world eat insects, and pretty much all bats in the United States eat insects, except for a couple. They eat things like moths, beetles, some mosquitoes, and a lot of those are important insects, which I'll talk about in a minute. But some species of bats can eat up to half their body weight in insects every night. That's a lot of insects to eat half of your body weight. So if you had to eat hamburgers, quarter-pounder hamburgers, enough to be like a bat in one night, how many would you have to eat in one night?
I think I gave this a good run for its money yesterday. I played my first Dungeons and Dragons game, and it was basically like all pizza, burgers, and chicken, and it was just way too much food. So I probably actually ate a pound of food, but I'd have to eat like 70, 80 pounds of food. Some of our kids are at like 30, 40, 50. Yeah. All right. Quite a bit.
So it depends, of course, on how much you weigh, but I would say 200 plus probably. I would have to eat more because I weigh more. But do you think you could eat 200 hamburgers in one night? I know some people might say they can, but I don't think I could. So this is what bats are doing. They're out there, they're eating a ton of these insects. And like I mentioned, some of those insects are mosquitoes. So they are helping keep those mosquito populations down, and that's good for us. And then also other things that these bats are helping protect. Who likes corn? Corn on the cob. I love that's like one of my favorite summer foods.
Best. Yeah.
Yeah. What about grapes?
They're okay.
I eat grapes. I like the purple one better. What about chocolate? My favorite.
Chocolate galore. Yeah.
Yes. So all those things and many other things are crops that these insect-eating bats are protecting, because there are insects out there that eat these plants as they're growing. They eat cacao, they eat the grapes that are growing, or the corn. And these bats are eating those insects, those bugs, so that they cannot damage those crops. So having bats around helps bring us corn, helps bring us grapes and cocoa and cacao for chocolate. So again, thank bats every time you eat these things. They're really great to have around. Now, unfortunately, with many animals around the world, there are threats. These bats are undergoing threats that are causing them to sometimes go extinct or be on the brink of extinction. Things like habitat loss, cutting down trees, clearing areas, disturbing caves, for example, habitat loss. Persecution by people. Some people don't like bats, so in some areas they might try to go into a bat cave and kill all the bats in the cave because they're afraid of them. Or some diseases like white nose syndrome, this little fungus that grows on bats here in the United States and Canada that unfortunately ends up killing the bats. All of these things and more are leading to bat declines around the world. And so that's why I am a bat conservationist. I wanted to do something to help save bats in my career. And these are some of the cool bats that I've gotten to work with, and I'll talk about how did I become a bat conservationist. So it is, in my opinion, the best job ever. As a bat scientist, you get to explore really cool places like inside caves that other people, will never get to see. We get to go crawling through caves. We get to search for bats, so we get to find new caves and find where these bats are sleeping so that we can then protect them. So I've gotten to search mountainsides for these caves and find these endangered bats. And as a night owl, I love staying up late at night. So I get to work at night. And for me, that's one of the best parts of the job, is being outside at night. And of course, one of probably the all-time best part of the job is getting to actually get up close with these bats and study them and figure out how can we help protect them. This is one of the first bats I ever got to catch when I was being trained on how to be a bat scientist. But I did not start as an adult. I got a very early start in bat conservation when I was, this was me in 6th grade. So when I was 12, that's me in the glasses. And that's my mom in the pink shirt. And this is our Girl Scout troop. I grew up in Girl Scouts. I'm still a Girl Scout, a lifetime member. And we would go on night hikes during the evenings and during summer camp. And I'd see these cool animals flying around. And I didn't really know what they were. So I started to read about bats. And I learned that unfortunately they are under threat of extinction. And so when I was 12, I wanted to do something for my Girl Scout Silver Award project to help bats. So I decided to build bat houses and put them up in my hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio, where I grew up. So this is me with my power tool, and that's my dad helping me put together these bat houses. I put them up in a local park. There they are. You can see them. These are not the best bat houses, I will say. We've learned a lot since then, so these are not the best. But these were, what I learned how to make. And unfortunately, I went back a few weeks later to check on them to see if bats had moved in, and somebody had vandalized my bat houses. Somebody had torn them down. So they were in shambles on the ground. I was really sad. But I didn't let that stop me. I continued to learn more about bats. And in college, I decided I wanted to study zoology, which is the study of animals, of wildlife. And I got a chance to study bats during the summers. And so I studied bats in Texas for 3 summers. And my last year, my senior year, I built bat houses again for a project to study the preferences of different bats for different types of bat houses. So you can see I have a big giant rocket box here that looks like a rocket, and some standard flat houses here. And I studied which ones the bats preferred. Here I am installing them. So this time these houses were a lot bigger than my 6th grade bat houses. And the bats moved in. This is both of my houses. I built 18 different houses. And these were two of the favorite ones of the bats. And there were hundreds of bats living in my bat houses. So you can imagine how excited I was that they were calling my bat houses home. But the best part was, one evening I went to check on the bat houses right before the bats were coming out. And I looked up in here, you can see them up in there. And one of them, these adult bats flew out. I saw something still up in there that were like pink, and they were kind of little. And I realized that those were baby bats up in there behind these ones that you can see. And so these bat houses, one of them was being used as a maternity roost where the mother bats were giving birth to and raising their baby. And so I was very, very excited. I must admit I cried from excitement that my bat houses were helping provide housing for bats. So that spurred me on. After college, I went to Australia. I got to live in Australia for a year, and I got to study a critically endangered bat species in Australia while I was living there for the year. I got to, again, go deep inside these caves. And can you see all this black stuff here on the left picture? All this black stuff. This black stuff goes down about 30 feet. So it's pretty tall. Those are mounds of guano,
nice.
Bat poop that we had to crawl up. So that was definitely one of the dirtiest parts of my job. But I got to find these little bats, and there were about 40,000 of them in this cave. And I got to research them for a whole year, which was really, really cool. And then I got to go to earn my PhD to become Dr. Lear, where I worked in Mexico. So this time I went down to Mexico. I was studying pollinating bats. So again, those bats that spread pollen and help protect and reproduce plants. I got to use really cool infrared cameras. So like those in the Blair Witch Project or in any of those scary movies, you see the night vision. I got to use those kind of cameras to watch these bats. And I got to do interviews with rural agave harvesters or farmers, people who were using agave plants that these bats are feeding on. And then I got to learn all about those bats. And then that led into my position here at Bat Conservation International. We are a nonprofit, and I get to work to save these endangered pollinating bats through my job now. It is really the best job ever. So I want to end real quick on what you can do to help bats now, like where you are in your own homes and neighborhoods. You could be like me and put up a bat house. There are plans online about how to make a good bat house. There are some good ones out there that are pre-made or kits that you can assemble. And so putting bat houses up in areas where there have been trees removed, or if people are excluding bats from a house or a building, that's a great case to use bat houses. You do have to be careful and patient though, because sometimes bats might not move in. So you do have to be patient, and it's okay if they don't end up moving in. But one of the coolest things that you can do is you can plant a bat garden in your yard or your school. So Bat Conservation International, BCI, we have a guide to gardening for bats where you basically plant night blooming flowers, so flowers that open at night, and then nocturnal insects will be attracted to those plants, and the bats will then be attracted there and eat the insects. So you have your whole little like food chain, food web in your own backyard, and you're helping feed these hungry bats. You can also adopt a bat from a bat organization. So BCI is one. There's a couple other ones out there who you adopt a bat and you get a plushie bat. You get information about what you're helping to protect, and your money goes to supporting bats and helping people like me protect them. And then finally, I always like to end on this. Tell your friends and family how neat bats are. This is one of the best things that we can all do now, is help share how cool bats really are and how neat they are. So I want you all to go home and share one thing, at least one, that you learned today with your friends or family. One cool fact, and that helps spread the word about how important and cool bats are. And remember, it really never is too early to start. Whatever you're interested in, whether it's bats or dancing or math or whatever it is, it's never too early to start. So dig in and start enjoying. Thank you all, and I definitely want to leave time for questions, and I have some cool things to show also while we do Q&A.
Super cool. Well, no better message than that. Kristen, that was so much fun. And we're going to dive in with our Kahoot to begin. So a few questions, have some understanding, and have some fun. And then we are going to dive into an epic Q&A. If you don't get your questions answered live, please do email them to me at exploringbytheseatofyourpants, and I'll pass them along to Kristen to keep the excitement going when we're done. For those who are new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And what you win is Kristen and I's everlasting respect. So no pressure at all. We'll dive in with question number 1 in a second. Again, faster you answer, more points you get. Let's get started with question 1. And if you want to give us hints along the way, you are welcome to chime in and make it a little easier for folks. But let's do this thing. And then our Solon Spring School, you guys are going to be our first for Q&A. North Cavan Public School, you guys are going to be next. YouTubers, start sharing in the chat. How many kinds of bat are there? 50? Nearly 1,500, 125, or 9? And it's not even just maybe nearly anymore as a bit of a hint. It's over since the last time I did this. Because this is the thing, is that when we send people out into the field, we find new species all the time. This is true of rainforests. This is true of the ocean. This is true of lots of ecosystems on this planet. Is when we look a little more, we find some really special things. So yes, nearly 1,500, over 1,500. Way to go, everybody. Graceful Emu has our lead. All right, let's go to question 2. I hope a bat name wins. It always makes me happy. Of all the bats, how many are vampires? This was a throwaway line in your talk. Is it all of them? 3 individual kind of bat? 20% of bats? Or no bats are vampires? It's a myth. And
I didn't provide a specific number, but hopefully you can.
I think you did. I could look back. I'm pretty sure you did right at the beginning. Yeah, let's see. All right, 22 answers in. Drum roll. Yes. A lot of you thought 20%. So very few bats are vampires. Of the 1,500 plus species of bats, only 3 are vampire bats. They are real. They're fascinating creatures. I really encourage you to look up vampire bats, but they're so pretty and so cool. All right. Grace Emu has a dominating lead going to question 3, which is bats are blind. The classic thing. Maybe this picture of a bat with giant eyes will help you on the right path. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I would love to know how this got into the public imagination that they are. Because
I mean, I think it's because they're out at night, and so people were like, oh, they don't need to see if they're out at night.
50-50 split. Bats right. Okay, so I think next time we do the talk, we'll start with like bats can see. They can all see, lots of sight. A lot of them happen to use echolocation and hearing as a more important sense to them than vision like we do. But they can see for sure. All right. Rachel Emu keeps her lead over Space Panther. Our final question. This is a multi-select, so it's at least one answer is right. It might be all 4. It might be 3. It might be 2. Why are bats important? They're major pollinators. They can eat insect pets that impact crops. Learning about bats has helped us develop medicines, or all animals are important. Well, let's see what we get. Ooh, we're tripping people up with this one.
Oh yeah, and I will share that one that we didn't talk about.
Yes. There's one there. True as well. The answer
so people who guessed the yellow, yes, they are important for medicine development as well. So very good on that one.
We're sneaking it in. And yes, all animals are important. Everything is important. Of course, we are stewards of the planet, and we have the power to help animals survive or do the opposite. And it's really important as we dive in with this Ambassadors of Conservation series that we highlight that we really can make a positive difference. Yellow Baboon takes the win at the end. Way to go, guys. Thank you so much for playing along. And we're going to dive in with Q&A. So YouTubers, please share your questions in the chat. A bunch of you have already done that. We are going to head to Mrs. Fromm's class for our first question. Come on in Wisconsin and take us away, guys. Any question? Any question?
What's the question? We're so good at this. What's your favorite species of bats?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a hard one because there's over 1,500. But I do love those pollinators. Remember that video of the bat with the tongue in the plant? Those are the bats that I work with. They're called Mexican long-nosed bats, and I've gotten to work with them. I've gotten to catch them in Mexico and see them up close. They're really cool, and they love nectar, so they have a huge sweet tooth, and I have a huge sweet tooth as well. So I think they're my favorite.
They're a pretty good pick. I like the one on the bottom right, like is it a hammerhead in your first picture? They're a really special, weird bat. They're very cool. I like that.
They're really cool. Yeah.
North Cavan Public School. Come on in, guys. Unmute your mic, and you are good to go for question number 2. Hello. You're there. You're ready. You don't need to type it in the chat. You can say it live. But if you are writing it in the chat, I'll share it this way. What's the most interesting bat you found? Now, you have a favorite. Is this like...
Yeah, so I have two. Yeah, so I have actually gotten to catch a vampire bat when I was in Mexico. And they're really cool because they're very strong. They're one of the only bats that can actually like really run on the ground with their wings and their legs. So if you Google or go to YouTube, vampire bat on treadmill, you can see them running. So they're really cool.
And I want to stress, students, if you become a scientist, you can literally be in a position where you are putting bats on treadmills for your job, which is very fun.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then I have this little bat. So this is a taxidermy bat. So it's a dead bat that I stuffed. It was from a project. And this is an eastern red bat. They're very common in the eastern part of the United States. And they're really, they have this, this is its like tail membrane right here. And these are its little back feet.
Yeah.
And they have really furry tail membrane, and they use it to wrap around their head, which is here, when they're sleeping. And so we call these little tail membranes butt blankets because they use it as a blanket to keep warm while they're sleeping.
Very nice. Oh, gosh. We're going to take them from our YouTube friends now. Akash wants to know, are bats found in cold places in Asia like Mount Everest? And if yes, why are they not found in Antarctica? There's a bigger one.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So they are found in cold places. I don't think they're on like Mount Everest, that's a bit high elevation, but they are found in places like Alaska where it's cold, where there's snow. There's actually some bats that hibernate in the snow. We call them like little igloos. They don't build things, but they're like little igloo bats that are in the snow. And they're just not in Antarctica because Antarctica is too far away from all the other continents, and they can't fly there to get there at this point. So it's kind of too far isolated for them to get to.
Yeah, they'd have to fly across a very, very cold ocean with lots and lots of wind to get there, and a lot of animals have not made that journey for that exact reason. So great question, Akash. All right, Miss Snyder's class, so many from San Antonio, as always. Every time we have San Antonio classes, you guys ask the most questions, and I love it. All right. Let's see. What's the average number of bats per cave? Do we have any sense of a usual number?
It varies hugely. So an average is really hard, but there will be some bats that roost by themselves in a cave. Like there'll be one little bat here, one over there. Some will be like 100 bats in a little group. But if you're from San Antonio, near San Antonio, there is Bracken Cave Preserve, owned by Bat Conservation International. And it is a cave, it has a cave that has the largest colony of any mammal in the entire world. There are an estimated 15 to 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats in that cave, and they all fit inside that cave. So you can imagine 20 million bats in one cave.
I am pulling this up as a link for everyone right now. So I want to stress, I get the chance to talk to a lot of bat researchers. I'm very lucky, and every one of them is like, Bracken Cave, it's the best. So I really encourage you to check it out. It's a really, really special place. Texas in general, Austin has a bridge that millions of bats come out from underneath every single day. It's one of the most special places on this planet for bat research and understanding. So check it out. I put it on YouTube and StreamYard. Very, very cool question. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's a good question.
North Cavan, I'm heading back to you guys for another one. How do bats find their bat house? You put it up. How do they even get there?
Yeah, so multiple ways. They use sight, so all bats have eyes and can see. And when they're flying around at night, they see things. And if you put up a bat house like on a pole or like on a building, they'll be like, what is that thing like sticking out? So they'll actually like come investigate. They can use echolocation as well to be able to see the bat house. And I have an unfinished bat house here just for scale. You can see they're pretty big. And this is cut out. Usually the bottom would go all the way across, but it's cut out so you can see inside. So yeah, they see these, and then they land on the bottom here, and they crawl up inside, and then they go inside these tiny little crevices, and that's where they sleep at night. So yeah, they find them with sight for the most part, with eyes.
Super cool. Thanks for bringing a bat house, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. YouTubers, again, there's so many great questions there. Let's see. Akash wants to know, how do bats find mosquitoes in the dark? Let's speak to echolocation a little bit.
Yeah, so echolocation is how bats fly and find food in the dark. So echolocation, if you've heard of radar, so dolphins have radar, we use radar. It's that. So they emit a sound, they like yell from their mouth or their nose. And that yell will then, here's a pen, say this is a mosquito. That yell will hit the mosquito and bounce off of it and come back to their ears. And then they're like, oh, my yell just hit something. So I know there's something over here. That's echolocation. And so that's how bats fly and find prey, even when it's pitch black out and zero light. They can still fly and find food.
It's one of my very favorite things in the whole world of nature. I think a lot of us, as we grow up, we're sort of used to it. Like, oh yeah, bats echolocate, but it's like a magical ability. It's so neat. The science to figure that out and understand that was one of the great triumphs of biology ever. So just really cool question. Thank you so much for that, Akash.
Okay.
All right, Miss Snyder's class, I've never had it this phrase quite this way. How old can bats get? And is there a difference between males and females? Which is interesting.
Ooh, yeah. So I'm sad I took my slide out on this, but yes, I'm glad you asked. So lifespan. So if you think about an animal that's similar in size to, like, I don't know, the size of your hand, like a rodent. They're not rodents, but they usually live 2 to 3, 4 years. The oldest bat in the world was 41 years old. And that was a wild bat caught in the wild. A researcher caught it, put a little band on its arm that had a unique number. And another researcher 41 years later caught that bat. And because it had a band on it, they could tell it was that bat from before. So they live very long lives. And when you're a small animal with a high metabolism, like very high energy, like a bat, you're supposed to die young. That's the rule of nature. Live fast, die young. But bats defy that rule. And so there's actually a lot of research going into how can we study bats and make an anti-aging medicine for us so that we could live to be like 300 years old and healthy. 300.
Very cool. Oh, cool. I love when we get the bat age question. That's really neat. Is there no difference male and female?
I'm not actually sure. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Of the scientist.
I'm not sure. Thank you for there's always something to learn or something you don't know. So I will look it up.
As you're looking that up, I've got a question I think you can answer on the fly as you're doing stuff, which is in heavy rain, how can bats find their homes? Do they go out and fly? Does it mess with their echolocation? Do bats go out in big heavy rain?
Yeah, so they can fly in the rain, but if it's a heavy rain, they'll go find shelter. Just like us, if they're flying and they're being pelted by heavy rain, they get heavy and it's hard for them to fly. And like you said, it can mess with their echolocation because their echolocation call, the yell, is bouncing off of those water droplets. So yes, they'll stop, they'll go find shelter somewhere.
Super cool. And I will say, if you do find out the male-female thing later, you can always message us and we'll pass it along to the class. And Ms. Snyder's class, please feel free to share additional questions in a chat afterwards. I'd love to take them. Before we wrap up, I want to highlight again, there's so many resources to be found at batcon.org, at Bat Conservation International. There are very few organizations in the world so dedicated to the protection of one group of animals. So Kristen, her amazing team, the whole field of Bat Conservation International, really great stuff. There's what else do I have? Oh, I'll put the bat box thing in a chat. We got a great bat box creation from the National Wildlife Federation link that we shared. But if you've got one from BatCon, we'll pass that along as well.
And I'll put the bat gardens as well.
Amazing. Yes, that's really easy to find for everyone who's keen. But planting native plants for pollinators is a really easy way of attracting all sorts of great local creatures, whether it's butterflies, birds, bats, an easy way as a classroom or as a home that you can do a lot of good for wildlife. Before we wrap up, is there any final message about bats you want to leave our audience with about how cool they are, how they can learn more, anything before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I think in general, bats are kind of an underdog. They tend to get a bad rap, but nowadays, lots of people are really seeing how cool and important bats are. And so, like I said, I think one of the best things we can do is to share about bats. So again, if there was one really cool fact that you learned today, go tell that one thing to at least, I'll say 2 friends or family today and help spread that word.
I'm going to go call my wife and my mother immediately and let them know all about bats, that even if they're in the middle of programs today. There we are.
I love it.
So nice having you on. Thank you so much for being our lead off to our amazing If Then Ambassadors of Conservation series. It's such a wild ride. Again, they'll all be on our YouTube channel, and I really encourage all our classes, check out ifthenSheCan.org. There's 124 other amazing scientists and explorers from around this planet, like Dr. Lear. So much to explore and discover. And with that, we will say farewell. Thank you so much for joining today, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.